Hi guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and here we are now with part 9 of this little beauty, our 1/24th scale Spitfire from Airfix. If you remember part 8, we actually looked at getting the wing in and squared up and everything, and we got all that done. And we've now got the bulkhead glued in at the base of the wing. That's been left clamped for like 24 hours, so we know that glue's good and solid, and we've got a good solid joint. So our Spitfire fuselage is now firmly attached to our wing in the front and in the back. So now we've got to look at these areas in the side, and potentially, first of all, we've got to look at this area here, because if you can see there is a gap. It needs to be clamped down. So I'm going to close this gap up here and get this inner flap area here glued to the fuselage. So obviously clamping that is going to be very difficult. I've done a little bit of work off camera. I haven't done any modelling off camera, which is what I keep getting accused of. I've done a little bit of research work off camera and found the best way to clamp this, and the best way is with a close peg. Okay, we've got quite a wide area here to clamp on to pull that down, but the problem is a close peg on its own isn't enough. So I've got this little G clamp here which will go over the peg, and I can clamp the peg down further. Okay, so if I use the G-clamp on its own, it may damage the surface, and it also may just slip off. So what I found was if I could clamp that like that, and that'd be great, as long as I don't let any glue run into this joint here, obviously on that side. If I don't let any glue run into that joint there, then it won't capillary under. If I do get glue in there, we'll have a problem because it'll capillary under. So all I'm going to do is glue this bit, let me get a pointer, on this side obviously I'm going to glue down there and across there. That's all I'm going to do. And obviously I'm clamping it first because I don't want oozage. So I'll do the same on this side. Put the peg on there and then clamp it down with my clamp. Let's move the peg forward a bit. And then we can clamp that all down nice and tight. As you can see, we've got a nice tight clamp on those pegs now. So all I got to do now is come along with some extra thin and run it into there and run some into there, and that should give me a nice solid joint that won't split open. Okay. And obviously we do not want it to run into that joint there, because that will cause us an issue. And we can see now with that clamped how we've got this tiny little step, reminiscent of that step there on the wing. So it's a lot nicer than it would have been if I hadn't done that work. I was actually looking around online to look at finished built models, and saw a couple, and sure enough they do have quite a large step there. And but it's not unsightly, it looks absolutely fine. But it's just something that now I know is there. I'll be looking for it, and I think you guys will too as well. And I also noticed that I put that rivet in, and I think that makes it look a lot better as well. So you can see the riveting on that panel there, along there. So very, very good. Really happy with how this is coming out. So yeah, lovely. Right, we've got to deal with these bloody things here. Yeah, they're going to be a nightmare. So we can let that dry. That is now clamped in position. We'll let that dry and we'll look at something else. And if you're thinking about fit, look how lovely the fit is there. That's not even glued yet. It's gorgeous, isn't it? Right, exhausts. If you remember, we left you in part 8 with the exhausts we were working on. So I've literally brushed some Mr. Surfacer on them and then sanded them over again. So that's all I've done on them. So they're pretty much ready for a coat of nice coat of spattery paint and stuff. And give them a bit of a texture, and we'll go from there. So they're all done. So I think you'll agree they look a lot better with weld seams than without. Let's try and get that shadow going again so you can see the weld seam. There we go. You can see the weld seam on there now. So there we go. Right. So as I mentioned just now, I was looking online for pictures of built-up Spitfires, and I found somebody talking about doing a modification to make the kit go together. And basically it's this pipe here. Okay, so I've got the parts off the sprue, so I will show you what's going on. So here's our engine bearer, all built up as per the instructions here, and then here is said pipe. Okay, so this pipe has to go in here, it has to go in there and out there, and the problem is getting it through. It's extremely difficult. So you think, well, I'll go this way then, and then you've got to get that to go in behind there. And as you can see, I'm doing a lot of bending and a lot of pulling about, but I did actually get it in once, and I managed to get it out again for video making purposes. And I don't really want to put it in again, but basically it goes in like this. Now there are a couple of options of getting around this. You can see you have these mounting points here. Let me get these instructions out of the way because it's messing up the screen. You have these two mounting points here, and they go onto these two mounting points here. So basically it's going to sit like that. So if you're going to cut this pipe and come in from either end, then I would suggest cutting it behind this main member here, and then the cut won't be seen. Okay, so if you cut it there, you could put that pipe in that way, put that pipe in that way, and have them join up. You could drill them, put a brass pin in there, whatever, have them align, job done. But as you know, I'm building this out of the box, and to keep myself, not my sanity, but to keep myself right, so there's mould seams on these that need cleaning up. To keep myself right in mind, I want to make sure I stay on the out of box theme. So if I go and put a piece of brass rod in there, it's not specifically out of box. Now I have actually used two pieces of plastic in the tail, I know, for packing, but I wouldn't class that as being a non out of box thing. It's just modelling. But starting to cut parts, modify parts, adding brass pins and stuff, I would consider as not being out of the box. So I have a better idea on how to make this work. And I haven't done it yet, I haven't tried it yet, obviously, because I've only got one kit and I can only do this once. So what I'm going to do is get my saw with its broken blade, and I'm going to cut through here. Okay, shouldn't take long because there's nothing to it. There we go. So I've cut through that member there. And remember, when this goes in the bulkhead, it's going to be very well supported on the bulkhead. So I'm not really concerned about losing strength here because it's going to be well supported there. So I've cut that there. So now, I hope this works, because I think yeah, it should do. So now I can put that in there, push that over, and thread that down through there. And there we have our pipe fitted as per the instructions. So that is my suggestion on how to fit that pipe. So as you can see, with that cut out, it's easy to put it in. Bring this one around, slot that down behind there. Just like that. Job done. Okay, so we've got a mount there, and a mount there. And then we can just put a drop of super glue or something on the back of there just to hold that in position. Use the bulkhead as a guide. But because all this needs to be painted first, this is going to be like, I think this is copper. They're telling you to paint it like a brass colour, I think, in the instructions, but I think that's copper. We'll have a look at our references in a minute. But I think that's the way to go. And I think that's going to work a lot better than having a brass pin in your pipework. Okay, so that's just my suggestion. I've got the other bits off the sprue that need to be painted in this copper, brass, whatever it is. So we can get all them done together, because we're going to have to put some black down first, check some seams, and then if they are copper, I will paint them with super metallic super kappa. So we'll have a look at, in fact I've got the book here, we can look now. I'm not sure if, I think they're copper, I'm sure they are. This book came with the Tamiya Spitfire in 32nd scale. Okay, and on this one they're actually painted green. So I think in wartime they were left copper. I'll do some research and I'll come back to you and I'll let you know. Okay, looking through the instructions, where we've got the blue bit was there. Of course, it's the landing light, isn't it, which I've put in. So looking through the instructions, just look in here. We've built the engine up, as you know. So just look in here, looking at all this. We've already built these up, these little bits here. I've just done the seam in that one. Got these bits off the sprue, cleaned up and everything. And as we can see, a lot of this is 78, which is the grey-green colour. So what I will probably do is when this is dry and all cured and everything, and we've done the wing root, I'll probably put all this on and paint it all green in one, and then pick out the little bits and pieces in detail. So I thought, well, I'll get it all off the sprue, and then we can get it, because everything's going to be prime black first, because as you know, I don't want a sort of monotone colour. You know, I like to go for my blotchy bits. We all like blotchy bits. So I've basically got all these bits off the sprue cleaned up. As you know, we've already built up the engine bearer and the engine. I've just talked about these pipes, which obviously need to be painted before they go on, and they're going to be primed in black. I've looked online and it would appear that they are like a sort of brassy colour, so I'm going to have to do them in brass. Now, I'm not sure. I think this is what Ed sent me. Yes, we have super rich gold in the super metallic. I also have this one here, which is the metal colour brass. The only problem with this one is it's attacked by enamel thinners. I don't think this one is, so we should probably paint it. I've also got the alclad brass as well, so yeah, polished brass. So I think I may well do them with this, because I do like that, although alclad doesn't like being handled a lot, but we could give it a coat of aqua gloss. Let's cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. Right, so getting these parts off and cleaning them up and everything, and it suddenly dawned on me a tip that I don't think I've shown in this video. In fact, I know I haven't shown in these videos, but I don't think I've ever shown, is something I do with the relating to clean up parts. It's often better, like with small bits like this especially, if you cut a section of the sprue tree out with the part on it, it makes, let me get these instructions out of the way because they're messing up the white balance, it makes the clean up a lot easier, rather than trying to hold that little part and then get inside on these little bits and clean up the mould seam. As you can see, it's so much easier to hold it and scrape away the mould seam just like so, and then turn it over there, and then we can come in with a little sanding stick and sand it and everything, and then, you know, with our soft sponge clean it up. Job done. And then we can get inside there. If there's a mould seam in there, we can get inside there and scrape it away just like so, and it's so much easier. And then once that's done, we can just nip it off the sprue like that, throw the sprue away, sand the back, and then we're done. Same with this pipe. You know, when you're trying to hold flimsy pipes and trying to get the mould seam, you know, we just hold that on there, get a sponge, go over it, sand away the mould seam just like so. I mean, we could even do this side if we could get in there. It just makes life a lot easier because it's easier to hold. Okay, so nip that off the sprue, throw the sprue away, clean up the sprue nibs, and then sand away the mould seam. I always find mould seams very important to get rid of, because they will pick up washes and stuff and stick out like a sore thumb, and they look bloody awful. There we go, just feel over there. So there's that pipe done, and I've got a box of bits which is growing here with bits in. That can go in there as well. So there we are. So going forward, got all these parts off. Obviously we've built up the oil tank. Haven't got these off yet. I've got those off to try them in there. And then I thought, well, these got these air intakes on the bottom of the engine, so that'd be good to build them up and get them primed. Now I'm doing A or D, so it's going to be this one. I have actually assembled these two parts here, L14 and L13. They go together quite nicely. So there we go. I won't be using them. So I thought this little thing here, this little pre-filter for the intake is very interesting. The way they've designed this is quite clever, but you need to be really careful with the cleanup. Now, as you can see, we have all of the edges of these parts are chamfered. So the sprue nib is actually on the chamfer, so you want to get a hard stick and cut away the sprue nib and then sand it away so that it disappears, because it's going to really affect your fit. And then on here they're on the outside corner, so they'll be fine, but we'll just make sure we haven't got any burrs or anything on there. Same on here. Got the sprue nib on there, we'll sand that away. And then this top edge. But we want to be really careful with the sanding, because basically what's happening is these parts are going together like this. So you've got this part here, L18. Again, we've got sprue nibs on the edge here, but be really careful with cutting them out, because it's going to ruin the look. Because what's happening here is that chamfer is going to form the top edge. So that's going to go like that. That one's going to go like that. So you can see this chamfer here, when it goes in, you can see some of the chamfer. So that's why it's so improvement to get the sprue nib off. See that separate part that goes in? So it's really important to get a nice join there, if you're having your engine covers off, that is. So we're going to put a little drop of extra thin in there, just to hold it together. We'll have some seams to deal with up here. That's fine. I think once we've got this together, we'll get it all clamped up. So don't go flooding it with extra thin, or you'll get glue oozing out on this seam here. You don't want that, because Airfix have cleverly designed this to give you that lovely look. What's holding that apart? There's something in there. Oh no, it's okay. It's just not a wonderful fit, but it's an extremely complex seam and very cleverly done. Get a drop in there, drop in there. And then we're going to plonk this on. This is the base. So that's just going to go on there like that. And then the seam will be on the radius, so it'll be easy to sand that out. So the back end needs a clamp on it, so we'll get a peg. Get a peg on there like so. As you can see, it's all just easily crushable because it's made up of 4 parts. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue this front and get all that right, and then once that's dry, we'll glue the back together later, because that's going to be easy to fix. Whereas if we clamp the back up and push this front part out of line, it's going to be quite difficult to fix. So I think we'll get some glue into this seam here. Push that together. It's kind of fighting me a bit. Let me get some glue into there. There we go. It's kind of struggling to go together on that side, as you can see. can see there. But I think with some pushing and pulling, once the glue gets to work, I think it'll go together absolutely fine. What I could do with this, I saw one here, I had one earlier, a small rubber band. There we are, there it is, I knew I had one here. So we'll make that into a little tight circle. And then somehow get it onto there. Oh, come on, go on, you swine. Go on. Jeez. There we go, right. As you can see, that's pulled together lovely now. Now the back end is kind of pulling apart, so we get a clamp on there. That's quite a complex little assembly, that, and it's very cleverly designed to give you the rivet detail on the side. That's why they've done all that. So it could have been slide molded quite easily, but obviously that would add massively to the expense of the tooling, hence the price of the kit. So there we are. I think I'm going to get a peg on there as well and just pull that down. Get in there. Yeah, so now I can get some cement into there. Get some into there as well. Wow, that is... I'm glad I put the camera on now, because I think some of you, the newer models out there, might struggle a bit with this one. But that's what you're aiming for. So I've got a little bit of glue oozing there. You can see it just there, which is a shame. That looks awful. But we'll let that go hard and then we'll scrape it away. We'll get some cement into there. Yeah, it's not a perfect fitting part. Okay, but I'm damned if I could have done any better. That is quite a design. There we are. Right. So we can leave that to dry now. I think I might just put a peg on there just to pull that up all together. So we'll leave that to dry now for 8 hours or something. You probably hear me talking about these drying times, and they're fairly long. Reason being, this plastic is slightly on the soft side, but it does seem to take a long time for the glue to cure. It's really weird. It's like this one here. I glued this together half an hour ago. I could probably just, there we go, I could just pull it apart. It seems to stay soft for a very long time. Normally this glue, there you go. That's been glued together for about half an hour. I was able to just pull it apart, and it didn't even break that pin off. Look, didn't even break either pin off. Both of those pins still intact. It's really weird. And that's what I've been finding with the, any parts that need to be clamped and stressed. If you normally, like with a Tamiya kit, you will unclamp them after an hour or so. With this, they have to be left overnight, sort of thing. So you can see it's obviously the type of plastic that's been used. I don't know, because it was Plastech that made it. I would imagine they choose the material they use. I did see a comment, I think it was from James, that said they'd gone back to an old blend of plastic. But To be honest, I doubt if Airfix even knew what blender plastic was used. But they probably, I don't know if they specify it or not. But anyway, so that's why you hear me talking about leaving things for ages, and that's why I've been going through and building sub-assemblies. I'd like to be able to build this up, but I'd rather have it in this state with the side panels clamped on and then build this, because I think I explained this before. I could end up with it like that, I could end up like that. I'd rather get it to fit perfectly, and if I have to do some work on the seam, then I will. I'd rather work on the seam than try and make it fit. Now going on here, we're onto the exhaust, which as you know we've done. Then we've got the flaps going on. I'm going to have my flaps down, I think, because I like having my flaps hanging out. And then here we've got the ailerons. I've built up the guns already, you've seen them. We've got the ailerons to go together, so I think what we can do now is get the ailerons together. So here we have the ailerons going together. As you can see, we've got the two halves with the rod inside, just like it was on the Lancaster, if you remember, on the tailplanes and the rudders. So there we are. So that's all done. It's not done at all. I've got it here ready to go together. And I found a problem. I think these bits, 16, G16 and G46, I think they couldn't be mixed up. They look symmetrical, but I haven't mixed them up just in case. But what I found was when I put this together, this goes in like this. Okay, so that's sitting in there, and then when this goes on top, it's very, very floppy. So let's take that out, and when we look here, we can see we have a problem. There's a fit issue. You can see we have a really thick trailing edge section here, and a step up from there to there. So we've got to do some serious sanding, and you can also see there's a step there on the front edge. So we have basically got to slim this down somehow and get it so that it goes together. Now, it looks to me like it's this that's too thick, but it's not flat. You've got an angle here and it's flat there. We've also got some ejector pin marks with those horrible raised edges around them again, which it seems everyone in this kit does. So we'll get rid of them. But it's much too much. It's not those that's causing the problem. It's much too much. As you can see, there's a great big step there. So I need to remove some plastic. Now, it looks like we need to remove plastic from here, because that's already quite thin on that back edge. In fact, we'll just remove plastic from both. So I got pulled up on this the other day. Okay, I'm getting pulled up on a lot of things lately, and quite frankly it's getting on my nerves, to be honest. I spend hours and hours putting these videos together. People come and watch them on YouTube. It's free, you don't have to pay anything, but they criticise every bloody move I make. And somebody the other day said, why are you saying that you shouldn't use magic marker and then you go and use magic marker? Right, I would not use magic marker generally to do this, but when you're working on kits, it's a guide to see where you've sanded. Okay, so I'm going to use this Sharpie, right, and I'm going to do this. And the reason I'm using a magic marker is so that you can see what I'm doing. I would recommend that when you do this, use pencil. Okay, don't use anything that's ink based, because what happens is, unless it's something like a Lancaster, it doesn't matter because it's all black. But the problem is here, when you use magic marker, when you paint over it, okay, if you leave some on that edge, when you paint over it, it will, the paint solvent will soak into the ink and it will come through. So you'll end up with a black line. So you paint that white, you get a black dot or black lines. Then you paint it over in green and you get black lines. And then you paint it over in red and you get black lines. And whatever you do, you cannot stop it. I should imagine a seal would stop it, but I recommend you use pencil. I use magic marker so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, right, glad we got that cleared up. Now, we need to be careful here because we want it to stay flat. If we just hold it and start sanding, we may lose some flatness. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold it on this sanding stick, okay, which is quite hard and flat, and then sand some material away. And you can see the reason I put the magic marker on there is so that we can see Maybe it's just the back edge that's thick. You know, maybe it's concave and you're just going to sand this. If you're not new to my channel, you'll have seen me do this many times to thin out trailing edges to make them look better. I'm not doing this to make it look better, I'm doing this to make it fit together properly, because out of the box it doesn't fit. So we can see, you can see already how much that step has been reduced. And I'm going to keep sanding a little bit. I'm going to take a bit more off of here. If you notice, this is quite a fine sanding stick, so it doesn't damage the surface. I just want to make sure I'm keeping that something there on that rear edge, because if you thin it down to nothing, you'll get trouble when you stick it together. It'll just, the glue will just melt it because it's quite soft. So that's that. Okay, so the step is nearly all gone. As you can see, I'm using a very coarse stick. So now I'm going to do the same on this one. Yes, that is my stomach rumbling. It's very difficult to hold this one. Just remove some material. It's very difficult to hold this and keep it flat, so I'm not going to take too much off this one, or we might end up losing ourselves. But you can see where I've put the pen, it shows me where I have and haven't sanded. And what I'm doing with mine, you see, because I know that is flat on the edge, because I know I've used pen, I know I need to be careful and make sure I've got all the ink off. You can see I've got some ink down there, so I'll make sure I've got that off before I paint it. Okay, so that step is nearly gone now, so I'm going to take some more off of here because it's much easier to do. Just hold that there. In fact, we'll put some more marks on there just to check we're being even Stevens. Right. Okay, so we've nearly got rid of that step. So let's have a look at the front now. So I think what I'm going to do is remove plastic from here, from that edge there, because it's going to be a lot easier than trying to get down into that groove. So again, we've got the pen to make sure we're keeping everything even. There we go. Okay, we're starting to get rid of that step now. Playing tunes now. I'm keeping the camera on because you'll see what I'm doing. You can see it's only sanding the trailing edge, it's not actually touching that part there at all. Something is stopping it going together, and I think it's that there. I'm not really too worried if I have working ailerons or not, so I'm not too worried about the hinge being free to move. There we go. As you can see, I'm holding it together and that step is nearly gone. So once again, there's my stomach again. It's tea time. Right. Okay, so there's still some more to come off of there. I'm going to get in there with a knife actually and cut that away because I don't want to risk touching that leading edge. Here we go. And there we are, it's going together nicely. We'll get some more off of there. Just fast forward if you're getting bored, guys. Just look at this end, the way this goes, it's going to end up with a gap here, I think. Okay, so yeah, so this is actually shaped with an angle on it, and I'm sanding this flat. So what we're going to have to do is, after we finished, we'll come in and just remove some material from there to allow that to sit in. Otherwise it's not going to sit in there flat. So the other thing that's happening is we are taking off the trailing edge and not removing plastic from this area here. This is quite a complex little job, this, guys. I think what I'm going to do is make a little bonus video and stick it out today, because you're probably a week away from seeing this. So those of you that are building this kit, you'll have the forewarning, just in case you don't spot it. There we go. And we're pretty much there now, I think. I'll take some more off of there. And I think we'll just check to see what it's like with this in there. I've got a feeling they've got all of the actual positions for holding that hinge in place are probably correct. Yeah, you can see it's still held in there. It's not pinching it, and it's free to move. So, you know, the actual positions inside, these bits in here, as we run out there, and there's these bits here, and then on this one you've got that bit there where it runs through. They've got they're right. So as you bring it, it's the edges that are too tall. So it's not really something that Airfix can modify very easily, or Plastech, because it's a metal on situation. They'd have to add metal to the tooling, which is extremely difficult. So it's probably something that won't get changed, is what I'm saying. So it's just a case of just keep sanding until you're happy that it's flush. Of course, the other thing I don't know, stupidly I've gone and done this, it could be now that it's way too thin for the wing. It may be that the wing is fatter and I would have just had to pack that piece out there. Let's have a look. Let's have a look, see. Which side is this? This is the port side. No, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. It's let's see what the other side looks like. Great big bit of flash there. Right way up, Nigel, come on. These bloody ejector pins with a flash round them, it's a complete and utter pain in the bum. Right. So that one's too thick. Yes. Well, it actually didn't feel too bad, but it's obviously thicker. So if I hold it flush on the top, you can see it's slightly high on there. So if anything, this one's got a little bit of a step down to it. So it probably needs to be somewhere in the middle. But I can feel it's flush on the top. You can see that's got a bit of a step down to it. But I'd rather that than a step up. So who wants a step up in life, eh? So there we go. So that's pretty much it. I think we can probably take a bit more off of here. Should be holding it on there, shouldn't I? Keep it flat. Dodo. Hold it there on the end. There we are. So happy with that. In fact, I've probably taken, yeah, I have. That's why it's taken too much off of this end. I've now got a step down. But that's easy. That's really easy to cure. We just put a piece of plastic card in there. But basically, it's something you need to bear in mind when you're building yours, because it's going to be quite unsightly if you don't do that. So there we go. So we will actually put a piece of plastic card in there because I've sanded too much off. I've only sanded too much off on that end. You can see we've got an edge here and it's tapering down to nothing there. So I've messed up. You don't have to. I'm just going to put a piece of plastic card on there and then I'll come back and show you what I've done. Okay, we are done. So as you can see now, I can put this together. It's all covered in dust again, so it's stopping it going together nicely. Just get rid of all that. There's the bit of plastic card I put on just to fill up that gap because I went a bit crazy with the sanding. So there we are. That's the problem with using a really coarse stick, is just a few strokes takes off so much. And if you're not really careful, and the trouble is I would normally be working here, not over here. So it's your fault basically. But right, so there you can go. That fits together nicely. And just to show you the difference, try and hold that together and put this one together at the same time. You can see on here, you can see on this one we have a great big step up. Okay, we have a great big step up there. And on this one it's smooth. Okay, so you can see the difference in them there. Okay, and on the back edge, you can see how much thinner, if I hold it at the end, you can see how much thinner the trailing edge is. I've got to hold them together, if they bloody stay together. There you can see how much thinner the trailing edge is here, as opposed to that one there. That's quite thick. Okay, and you can also see there we have a step. In fact, this one's not as bad as that one was. There's a step there. So easy enough to do, just remove material as I showed you. One other thing I want to show you, in case you're not one of my regulars, this thing here is amazing. This is called a T-hoo, and you get this on Amazon, and you'll see other ones on there which are a similar colour, but they don't say T-hoo. I wouldn't touch them. I bought one, it was only about 10 quid or 6 quid or something, 7 quid, they're probably about £100 now. And it wasn't any good, it was rubbish. I bought this one, this is made by T-hoo, and it is absolutely awesome because it's a vacuum cleaner. Yes, it's a vacuum cleaner. So basically, when you've done your bits and pieces, and you've made a load of mess like I have here, put your bits and pieces out of the way, turn on the vacuum, and just pick up your dust and rubbish off the bench, just like so. And it's also really handy if you've lost a small part, if you've cut something off and it's flung across there, and you know it when you heard it land over there, it's great for finding things, because basically you open it up and you can see that's where the dust collects. So if you've lost a small part, you'll find it in there. So it's really, really handy. And it's a fantastic little tool, and it was about 10 quid, as I say. So for doing things like that and picking up sanding dust, You can also pick up dust off yourself, your hands, and it's just wonderful for cleaning up the work area. As I say, if you do pick something up you didn't mean to pick up, just pop it open and there it is. Great little tool. That's the name, Tihu, available on Amazon. So there we are. Right, so I'm going to get on and do the other one now. So let's get these glued together. You can see I've done one, and I've now sanded down this other one and got it all blended out nice and flat. I've just made that little extra video. So, and I see Steve commented. Steve was the guy that built the model that I'd seen. So nice to know that he's watching along. So, oops, I'm going to put this one in here. And then add that one in there. So yeah, Steve built a test shot from Airfix. Maybe they'll send me one. I'd love to do a test shot. So I'm just going to put cement here and let it run along. Just to kind of nip it together. And we are going to have to do some sanding afterwards. It's not a sort of one on, you know, it's not like a just chuck it together, put some glue on it, job done. It's going to need sanding, and we'll have to fill that seam on the front. We're going to fill this seam under here as well. But I'm just showing you that it does go together, and you can get it together and have it operational as well, which I'm not really too fussed about, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of moving features on anything. I like to have things posable so I can change their like steerable axles and stuff like that. So I could put a model down and have the wheels steered, because they never look right when the wheels are all facing dead ahead. I'll use the old Phil Flory way of doing the trailing edge here. Just get plenty of glue on the brush and then just let the part touch the edge of the brush and let it capillary in. Remember, we've got a big old surface in there. Okay, so we let that capillary in, just like so. What I'm going to do is put these clamps on, which I wouldn't normally advise. I'm hoping we're going to be okay. I would not normally advise clamping with these clamps on a trailing edge, because what will happen is the glue will attack the plastic will soften, and these will end up sinking in. So if that happens, then I'm going to have to eat my words. But as you can see there, we've got it all together nice and smooth. I just want to check that hinge is all working. Yep, that's all free. So that's all good. It may have a bit of glue on it. What we'll do is come back after sort of 5 minutes and just check, like on this one here, we'll just check they're still working. And if they feel like they're glued up, just every 5 minutes come and give it a little wiggle and it will soon free up. That's one of the beauties about using the quick setting, which I haven't used on here. If you have got a moving part and it gets glue on it, after about 10 minutes just move it and it just frees off, just breaks it away. So we can see that's all still free, so that's good. Right, so I shall carry on regardless. And there we go, we've got super glue in the seams now around the sides. I haven't done the trailing edge yet. Gonna let that dry. As we can see, because it hasn't been too long, we haven't got any sink marks in there. But as I say, be very careful. If you have got a lot of glue in your trailing edge, you know, you go and put those clamps on, you'll come back an hour later and you'll find they've sunken in. Especially with the softer Airfix plastic, you need to be very careful of that. Now we have got a gap in there, you can see there's a very slight gap, but I'm going to put super glue in there to seal that up. So we've got some super glue here, so I'm just going to put some in that trailing edge and let it go into the joint, and it will not only stick it together, actually there is no gap there really, it's just a line from the ink. So I'm going to stick that together and then we will be good to go. As you can see, there is a gap there, look, The super glue will wick into there. It's the thin I'm using, the black thin. It'll wick into there, help to glue it. We've also got, I wouldn't normally use super glue as an adhesive because I don't like it. If I can get away with it, I'd rather use poly cement. And then here we have this seam, and we have a row of rivets right next to it. So I'm just gonna see if I can get the super glue to go into that seam and maybe capillary along. I don't want to destroy those rivets. At least you see, this is another good thing with the black glue. If you do get the glue in the rivets, they will show up as a black spot. So, like I just did there. And there. There we go, that's in there like that now. So you can see, so that's all good. Put some more along that trailing edge. Just to give you an idea of time, guys, it's Saturday tonight, and tonight was the night I did my little live stream. Thank you for everybody that came and joined in on that one, that was great. There we go. And there we are. That's that all done. There we go. So we can leave that to dry, and I'll do the same on this one. Moving forward a bit, I've carried on going through the manual like I said I would, and got to this bit here. Where are we? As you know, I've built up the air intake, and I've gone round now with some super glue just to deal with the seams, and it's lovely. It's really, really nice. Here we have on the engine cover for B and C you have N17, which is like a fairing, and for A, D and E you have a blanking plate there, so I've glued that in and put some super glue around it just so I can sand that flat. As you know, we've done the exhausts, and then we're going to be doing the flaps once we've got all the fuselage to wing joins sorted. We've done the ailerons, just been looking at them. We've done the cannons, they still need sanding. I've glued the tyres together, that's for landing gear up, which I'm not having. Then we've glued the tyres together, which I think I've shown you before. Got to choose here, this is where I get definite now. I need to choose my, I think I'm going to go for version A with the stripes because it does look so nice. So there we have the wheels going together, going in the tyres, in the undercarriage legs, fit the undercarriage legs. And then all we got to do is the gun sight. Fit the tail wheel, fit the gun sight in there, put that blanking plate in the back of the fuselage. I've had a look. Probably by the time you see this it'll be too late to tell me, but I've had a look. This N6 is a blanking plate, and it does look like there is actually a metal plate in the real aircraft, and it still has the rivets around, so it's not like a blanking plate that's covering up, you know, there should be nothing there. And then we got our canopy going on, which will be lovely, and the propeller, which, as you know, I've done all this. And we've got to build the propeller up, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. So so there we go. Right, I do believe, no, I'm not going to chance it actually, because it was only about 6 hours ago that I did this, so I'm not going to chance taking it off. I'm going to leave that overnight. As you know, we've got glue in there all clamped up. So let's see what else we can do. Right, welcome back, next day now. So overnight this has all been dry and I've taken those clamps off, and what I've done off camera, I've just literally run some glue into those seams, put some super glue in there to seal them, and then I've run some glue into there. Take these radiators off. You can see you can get to the inside of the wing there, and you can also get to the inside of the wing joint there in the wheel bay. So that's pretty cool. Remember, I put that plastic card in there, so I've got plenty of glue in there and then not touched it. Left the rubber band on to keep the wing pulled tightly into the fuselage. So there we go. And bear in mind, if you are just picking this up, I have actually changed the build sequence. So I fitted the the upper wing to the lower wing before I fitted the fuselage, for fear that if you get the fuselage off, the wing won't fit. So bear that one in mind, guys. If you are following the instructions, they tell you to put the fuselage into the lower wing. If you have got it off, you know, exaggerated, if this is your fuselage and it's like that, then obviously your wing won't fit, or upper wing won't fit. So I did it the other way around. So there we go. I also, in case you haven't seen, I sanded down these wing fillets to thin them out, so we get a much thinner, nicer seam down here than we did before. So than we did without sanding that down. And I've also added the rivets along there as well, or screws, whatever they are. So I've just got to sand that out now. Though that joint there is absolutely gorgeous, perfect fit, really, really nice. Sand in there, and then we'll paint the inside of the flaps. The instructions say they can be green or aluminium, so not really sure. Oh, I've popped the ailerons on as well. You can see they're literally pushed in. You don't even have to glue them. And because I did the work with the sanding, they fit really, really nice. So if anything, this one I think is sitting a little low. I think I need to just remove some material to make it sort of come up a bit, because it's protruding on the bottom and it's sort of low on the top. It's not too bad. I just do a little bit of fettling, I think. And I've also given a quick coat of Mr. Servicer Black over there just to check if all around here was okay. So what I've done here, got all the black parts. There's the engine, we've already painted that. There's that intake that we did all the work on, and that looks lovely now with a bit of paint on it. So it's all looking really good and ready for green, gold, brass, whatever. And there's our exhaust now, you can see, with all the work done on the weld seams and everything. So there we are, and this is the back of the this is the engine plate that goes in behind the spinner. There's a couple of big ejector pin marks in there which I've just filled in for now to let them dry. So there we go. We've got all the bits off here ready to go on the bulkhead. So once they go into the firewall, we'll paint all that black, let it dry, and then we'll give it the coat of the darker grey green. So I was looking through the instructions and what we're going to do to get some sub-assemblies built up. And if you remember, I did these propellers on a separate video about seam work and everything. So I've just given them a quick coat of black just to check for any visible seams, and they look absolutely fine. So I was thinking about building up the propeller. Now, some of you newer modelers out there, you may not have ever done a propeller, ever built up a propeller before. You may have always had them sort of on the sprue as one piece. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of a guide if you haven't done it before. I'm going to use a grid here. On the back here I have a piece of plastic card which is, I believe, 0.75 thick. Yeah, 0.75 millimeters thick, 30 thou. Okay, and I've drawn two holes in it, two 1mm holes, and they're 10 millimeters apart. Okay, it doesn't need to be circular. And then you've got those two pins on the back of there that are going to go into the spinner back plate. So I've just done this to lift it off. Otherwise, when I put it down, obviously it rocks because those pins are in the way. So I've just made this disc up to go on there, and it will sit on there, and then it will sit nice and flat. So what I'm going to do is get my propeller blades and fit them into the hub, just like so. Okay. And then what we can do is just put a drop of glue. I'm going to use the ordinary one because it takes a while to dry, which is good. So I'm going to put a nice healthy dollop of extra thin into the base of each blade. Okay, get it nice and well glued up. It will go well soft. Well, it will get a big soft lump in it which will form like a concrete fitting after the end when it's all dried out. But we want it to be sort of held in there nicely. Right, now the first thing I'm going to do is take each propeller blade and just give it a gentle, you can see we have twist in it. Yeah, so I'm going to give each one, make each one is twisted clockwise, and that way we've got a better chance of getting them all the same pitchwise. I don't know where all these hairs are coming from. It's like crazy. It's like everything's static. I've literally 20 minutes ago got out of the shower, so it's not coming off my clothes. Got all clean close on. It's weird. And then what I'm going to do is put this on here, because we've got like a grid. I can put this in the center there, and I can line up the point of each tip, okay, with that vertical line there, and then I can look straight down on it, which I'm not going to do now because the camera, you look at the back of my bald head, and I can look straight down on it like you are now, and we can see if that tip and that tip are in line. And looking at the camera, it looks like they probably are. So it looks like it's pretty square already. To make sure everything is good, I'm going to take a rule and slide the rule under and just check that all of the blades are the same distance off the bench. And they are. And if you remember, I showed you how to sand the ends of those blades down here with a block and just sliding it across with that plate on the back. And that's what's paid dividends, because it's gone in there lovely and square. So we're all good and even. So we can just check again. Hold the center down, and the rule is just touching there. It's just touching there. It's just touching there now. So you can see we've got it all even, nice and square, and everything's good. So there we are. So that is basically how I've done the propeller. And as I say, I think that one of the big things is getting the ends of that hub nice and square. Remember I showed you, get a sander stick up against the block and then just slide it just to make sure they're square. Right, so we can leave that now to go off. And I'm going to call it a day for this video, because then we're going to get into the next bit's going to be all about painting all of this stuff around here, getting it all fitted, getting it all painted green. Haven't decided whether this down here has got to stay aluminium or what. I don't sure. I'm just going to probably paint it green, but must remember to mask off that landing light. So there we go. Thank you for watching. It's been fun. In the middle of this, I made another video all about fitting these pipes into the engine bearers. Somebody told me I was wrong, so I've pinned their video at the top, their comment at the top. So yeah, I just don't get some people. Anyway, I'll see you all soon for part. It's going to be 10, isn't it? Bye for now.